We'll call the meeting of the Urbana Free Library Board of Trustees, May 9, to order. May we have a roll call?
Chief Williams? Jeff Van?
Here.
Jeff Stiles?
Here.
Jeff Shearer?
Here.
Mark Netter?
Here.
Whiteson?
Here.
Bill Brown?
Here.
Robert Jones? Here. Anna Merritt is missing.
I don't see he's missing.
But she's absent. Anna Merritt is absent.
Without leave.
That's right.
Do we have any additions, corrections, or modifications to the agenda?
I have a modification in item 9.4. I would like to take it off for this week's agenda and put it on the agenda for next week.
Okay.
Next month or next week?
Next month.
Okay. Just checking.
No, we're having meetings.
It's a good check. Thank you.
We're looking for a
Oh. Any other?
9.4.
9.4.
9.4.
Yes.
The agreement with the county clerk. All those in favor of that change and approval of the agenda as changed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We will have an executive session this evening, so I'm just announcing it. Public comments. Yes.
Did anyone second and then move the approval of the agenda? We have Beth making a correction, but no motions.
I move approval of the agenda.
I second.
You want that as separate? Is that what you're saying?
I just
said-
want something.
Well, we had a motion to approve the agenda with that correction. That's what I did. I put her correct removal. That's
We
what-
actually didn't have.
But we actually didn't quite move
Oh,
it.
we didn't vote?
No, we just
We
kind of
voted.
voted. We
We
got the
voted.
third step. We just breezed over the first two.
But I'm willing to confess, I mumbled my approval.
Yep.
And I'm sure Beth did the same.
So we need to.
Everything was legal.
We've got a motion now, so we need to vote it, right? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Dang it.
Don't you hate when that happens?
Yeah, right. Okay, what do we have for public comment? Any? No, Simon, nothing? Presentation. Anka.
Yes, and Sherry.
And Sherry.
Liz.
Okay.
I'm just going to introduce, so as you know, the Shoe Collection has now been with us for a year. And it's been since February that we have started really processing and working on the collection, especially with the help of Liz Woodrick, who is our intern working with the Shoe Collection and who was a current student at the high school at the University of Illinois. But what made her stand out and makes her very special, she comes with some very good experience working in archives and working with mentors and colleagues of mine in the field that I respect very highly. So I knew that she was very well prepared. So she's done an amazing job. And Sherry, over that same period, has prepared us for this month's 100th anniversary celebration of Chanute, and has planned for us, with the help of Liz, 2 exhibits in the library, one on the second floor, one on the first floor, that she will talk about, and Liz will too, about her work. Sherry has also planned for the month of May an event to celebrate the Chanute anniversary, and she will also talk to you about an additional anniversary project, an initiative that we are starting this year. And thank you so much. They have worked really, really hard. And it's a big collection with lots of nuggets and great information, but a collection that has accumulated over the span of approximately 100 years. So many different hands have touched it. It has many different pieces, and trying to connect them and trying to assess them has been a major project. But it's really moving forward, and we're very excited. And I should also say, give a little nod, a good, important nod to Mark Hansen, who's now the curator of the Museum of the Grand Prairie, who was the curator of the Air Museum at Chanute for 10 years. And he did amazing work in both identifying, cataloging material, but also acquiring new material. But again, we're working with many different legacy systems of information description and categorization and cataloging. So that's the job that we have, is to all create one smooth description and access to the collection. So anyway, so lots of people have added a lot, contributed a lot, so I'm really, really thankful for everyone's work.
So,
So Sherry's going to talk a
okay,
little
Sherry's
bit
going to
about...
start.
So as Anka said, we have 2 exhibits. They're currently installed. They went up on May 2nd. They'll be up through the entire month of May. So we have one on the first floor, which is by the cafe, and that kind of gives an overview of the history of Chanute, the 100 years. And then on the second floor, we have outside of the archives, a smaller exhibit case, and that talks more about the relationship between the village of Rantoul and Chanute, because they had a very close relationship over the 100 years, and so we wanted to talk about that. And we also have a Town and Gown speaker series. That's going to be on May 31st, and that's the event that Anka talked about. So we're going to have a panel. Mark Hansen, who has graciously agreed to come, and he's going to talk. First, he's going to give kind of a overview history of the base, and then we have a panel of speakers. We have Kay Heath, who was a former civilian employee at Chanute. She was on payroll, and she was one of the last employees to kind of leave Chanute. She worked there for a number of years. She is currently, right now, the driving force behind the Rantoul Historical Society, and they also took in a number of items from Chanute, so she's going to talk about that connection as well. And then we're going to have Ron Egan, and he served basically nonstop at Chanute from the 1950s up until the closure of 1993, and he served both civilian and military. He was also the president of the Chanute Alumni Association, and I've actually seen his name in the cataloging records. So Anka was talking about the legacy systems, so we have their cataloging system, so I've seen his name from the museum side where he volunteered and was cataloging materials there, so I'm sure he's going to have a lot to talk about. And then of course Liz is going to be on our panel too, and so she's going to talk about the order that she has brought to the kind of mass of material that's next door. And as Anka said, next thing that we're doing is we put out a call for participation from people. We want to hear people's stories, and so throughout the whole year, we're soliciting oral histories from people.
Going to record?
Huh?
Are you going to record those?
Yes, recorded oral histories. And so we've got a form. I've got a Google form that's going out, and so we have put it on some local social media sites. I was on CI Living last week, and we talked about it there and put out the link there. And Tom Kasich also wrote an article just this last week, and so he linked to the form and that too. So I've already gotten a couple of responses to the form, so we hope to be in contact. We're gathering names right now and hope to be in contact with people and have that side of the story as well. So that's what we're doing, and so let's talk a little bit.
Yes, well, I mean, this has been an amazing opportunity, but it is a big collection, so I'm also kind of learning a lot as I go. So I thought I'd kind of just give a brief overview of what I've identified so far in the collection of the various record groups that we've found. So far I found that we got 700 linear feet of material, and of that, a little over half came from the actual Chanute Air Force Base. So it was created by the base from 1917 until it closed in 1993, and a little less than half is material that came from the Chanute Air Museum. So that was either created by the museum or was donated to the museum. And most of that is material that was donated to the museum. So there were over 500 donors throughout the time that was open. So we have quite a few accession material that still needs to be sorted out. And that has just about everything. So people donated training manuals, name tags, photographs. There are just all sorts of valuable research materials in that. And then of the material that came from the Chanute Air Force Base, we have 11 filing cabinets, so about 51 drawers that are vertical files that came from the history office. So those are arranged by subject, and then there are also files that are histories, so those go by year. and have newspapers, photos, programs from each year that the base was open. We also have photographs from the base. So we have 2 archival boxes, and we brought one of them over here that you can look at after the meeting, as well as 8 flat archival boxes of oversized photographs. So those have a lot of aerial photographs, and so you can kind of see how the base changed over time. We also have blueprints. So there are 6 map case drawers, so over 50 blueprints that also range from the entire time that the base was open. So again, you can kind of see changes that were made to the base. There are also reports, so there are departmental reports, and then also annual reports that were created by the base starting in 1942. The United States Air Force called for each base to create an annual report and send it in. So we have those from Chanute, and they created reports retroactively as well. So we actually have their entire history and annual reports that kind of give statistics from each department, an overview of what was going on in the base during the year, and those are really valuable research materials.
Liz, would you say like the reports, they're not like this thin?
Oh,
They're
no,
about
yeah.
this thick.
Yeah.
So,
Onion skin
and type.
paper.
Onion skin
Onion
type
skin
paper. So,
It's really thin.
And we brought those as well, so you can see a box of those. We've got about 24 boxes, archival boxes of those. So, yeah. There are also scrapbooks that were created by the base, publications, including the newspapers, and then also audio visuals. So we have 374 video cassettes that are either in VHS or Betamax format that were collected by the History Office. So yeah, we've got a lot of material. And so I'm just kind of figuring out what all needs to be done to process it, and we'll take the next steps from there.
Are you a graduate student?
I am, yes.
And how long are you going to be with us?
Maybe for the rest of my life.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, that will be great.
Where are we storing all this?
Yeah, we'll point that way.
Everything is in cover. And I suggested that at the June board meeting, which I think is going to have a lighter agenda, that we might make part of our meeting a tour.
Sure. Okay.
Did you say you were indexing by names at all? Kind
We're not quite there yet.
But you will be,
Yes.
by names, individual names.
Whoa.
Well, we'll have, we will
Maybe like the
have, I mean,
newspapers
there are
and-
over 2 million men and women were trained at Chanute. So we will not likely create an index of 2 million names. But, there are lots of resources in the collection that create aggregate information. For example, yearbooks, histories, rosters. So, I think, our job will be to essentially provide the pointers, just like we would in a library, to different resources and to help people research it. But I'm sure there'll be smaller pieces of the collection that we will probably decide have really high research interest, which we have already found, like the annual reports and the vertical files, that we will probably provide many access points to, so people can discover them. Once the material ends up being cataloged in our Polaris pack that's for local history online. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a question about whether the politics around the closing of Chanute are included, or does the federal government still keep that secret, or? I remember that. And some of us here remember this.
I don't think it's a secret,
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal.
but it was just money, and they just cut. I don't think it was a secret, was it?
Some got closed and some didn't, and I always had the feeling there was politics behind it.
Oh, no.
I mean, I know, silly me. And I just wondered if any of that is, I was assuming it might still be classified.
Well, we know that the military took things that they thought were either classified or that they wanted.
Okay.
So there was some
Yeah,
acquisition there before we ever got it.
okay.
I haven't looked into reports for that year, for the annual reports, like the official reports, but there are a number of scrapbooks that people have compiled, and clippings, and the vertical file from that, from 1993, is pretty extensive. So maybe not from like the official, federal government
Yeah.
point of view.
Probably the News Gazette too.
But
I
it's
just was
really well
asking.
documented in terms of, the base itself and, the local media. That's well documented in the collection. And there's a number of reports about the closure, because it was a nationwide
Yeah.
thing,
Oh.
base realignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have a terribly good feel for what's really in there, but one thing that would be of current value, there are frequent discussions of potential contamination of that land. There were various different types of tests and things done which led to some actually very severe contamination of parts of it, which someone then had the clever idea of using as a demonstration farm and for local produce. But it would be nice if anything happens to show up that would help pinpoint the particular spots that are likely to be the trouble spots. That could be extremely useful.
What did they use? What did they use?
TCE,
There was TCE, but there was other stuff. There's a fellow, David Noreen, I think, who knew much more about the details of this and that.
some of the stuff, it was a fire school, so some of the stuff, the foam and stuff that they used to put out the fires,
Right.
Oh.
Right.
the TCE.
So,
And there's definitely some documentation. I mean, there was, known contamination even while the base was active. So the lake at one point was off limits for swimming in there. If you even just Google Chinook and EPA or Illinois EPA, as far as I know, it had been declared at one point a federal Superfund site, but I think the federal government decided, we have too many of those. We'll give this back to Illinois, which has meant it's just, being cared for by the state of Illinois. But I know there was a recent article, just probably within the last month, that they have ordered a new environmental assessment of the base. It was a small article in the News Gazette. So it's an ongoing issue, and there are definitely people out there who are interested in keeping an eye on it.
And there are environmental reports in the collection, a handful.
So I had just a couple of things. Are you likely to get offered more stuff from the federal government at some point in the future, or there's nothing, I mean, they've taken classified things, but is there some federal repository that might have Rantoul stuff that at some point they may be spinning off? Nope.
No, I mean, the Air Force Museum, which is in Dayton, Ohio, we will probably eventually, have a more formal contact with them, just so they know what we have and we know what they have about Chinook. So, for example, even though there's scattered throughout the collection material that's relevant, for example, to the 99th Pursuit Squadron, so the Tuskegee unit, the Air Force Museum did come in and cherry-pick that. And so we have a lot of material about it, but so it'll be really important for anybody using this collection to do research to know that there are other pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, so are there other libraries, archive sites that have inherited similar troves from similar bases that closed?
I'm not sure.
Well, so then my other question was, is this like I mean, I haven't been in library school for a long time, but in the world of archives, so here you inherit, or we inherit this collection from Rantoul. This was Rantoul. This was their whole life. I mean, so what, I mean, I know we're doing things and people from Rantoul are coming, but it's in Urbana. Is there some archive professional way to privilege people from whence you got the stuff? I mean, like if you...
Privilege in what way?
Well, like to help their cultural understanding of their own town and their history and things like that. I mean, do they have to come down here and be forthright to find out about it, or do we owe them some...
So I think the plan most definitely is we have been in close contact with the Rantoul Historical Society, and I've actually worked hard just over these last few months. Actually, we've created kind of an informal roundtable of the various cultural heritage institutions in Champaign County, and we've been visiting each other's sites just to help and support each other. But yes, I think the plan most definitely will be that, for example, the exhibit that we just put up here in the library, that this exhibit will travel.
Okay.
And we will make it available to the society, to the public library, and we most definitely plan in the future, as we learn more, to have events that not only bring people to Urbana, but that we bring the story to them. So yes, I think it's really important. It's both, the history of Chanute operating in Rantoul, but also the fact that it closed and, Rantoul lost half of its population. Obviously, there's lots of mixed feelings and important history and memories that live in Rantoul. So.
Just you always hear these stories of some university in Texas inherited, all these paintings by somebody in Eastern Europe or something, and I just always wondered in the business, is there some way of saying, well, we owe something to where these things came from or something? That's right.
I think it's actually a big discussion in archives.
Okay.
About how we as institutions, what responsibility we have to the communities that we document.
So these things don't become just material or commercial artifacts that you can do with as you please, that you owe something to who originated them, maybe?
Right, there's best practice.
Yeah.
There's we're not governed to do any of that by any legislation. But the best practice is that if we are a repository for a community that may not be, intimately connected with us, that we make sure connections stay.
It's that's the memory of Rantoul. You hold the memory of Rantoul, and doesn't the UN or I'm sure somebody's made pronouncements on these sorts of things. Anyway, it's just interesting.
I'm anxious to see your display, but I know that between Urbana and Rantoul there was an interurban train that went up, so a lot of people really did live in Urbana. There is a connection.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's pretty strong. A lot of people that lived in Urbana worked in Rantoul, and on leave I remember seeing a lot of the Air Force guys in town on their weekend leaves and stuff.
There's a report, was it from '86, I think, that you found me, and it was showing a 50-mile radius. It was Chanute's impact, and it was 11 counties.
Wow.
If you count all the surroundings with 50-mile radius. So Chanute had a big impact in this area, not just Rantoul.
Yeah.
But
during the war, my mom worked there, and she, in the early 40s after she got out of high school, and then she transferred to Langley during the war, and that's where she met my dad. So I'm kind of a product of
oral history.
So I
Get him on your next program. Well, it sounds like there's just oodles, gobs, and opportunities to choose.
And the News Gazette did nice coverage.
Yeah.
Last week, was it?
Yeah.
Above the fold, for those of us who still need paper.
So you didn't have to buy it to read it.
Well, Tom Kasich probably wrote the articles in 92, 93 too.
Probably.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, anything additional that you want to add? We'll be calling on you, I'm sure, to show us and tell us what there is. Okay, moving on to the action items for the board meeting minutes of April 11, payroll of April 14, bills for April 19, payroll for April 28, and bills for May 3. Do I have a motion to approve the consent? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Very good. Moving on to the action items. Annual review and designate, and some of these I might say, we don't think that they're controversial, that they're necessary. Many times we bring them to the board for the next meetings, but some of these I think are routine enough. That's why we put them on the agenda. So the annual review and designation of non-resident card fees is the first item. Any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve this item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any Questions? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Aye, thank you. The service program renewal for fiscal year 2018 at $13,000. This is above the $10,000. That's why it's come to our attention. It's, let's say, a legitimate, we have to pay it, so it's not a matter of whether we're questioning the amount or anything. Any questions? Do I hear a motion to approve that item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, the next one is the budget amendment. And what do we have that needs to be highlighted? Anything in particular? We've got,
So it's May, which means we're close to the end of the year,
Yeah.
stating the obvious. So looking at a number of different funds that we can see are already over or about to go over, we as a staff felt it would be helpful as we look at June to just move some things around and get board approval to move some things around, so that as we look at June, there'll just be some fine tuning at the end. So this is a net zero change, moving from places where we know we're going to have overages to where we anticipate being overspent. Also, came in today, one of the abilities that the staff has is to move things around within the materials line, and I have a request from Adult and Youth Services to remove $3,000 from the compact disc adult budget and move it into $1,500 in new collections and $1,500 into adult downloadables. So that's in addition to the changes in here that just came in today. And the
3,000?
books, a downloadable, that's easy.
Yes. Yes.
so these are both really new items then. 3,000 more for,
Well, we're moving 3,000, we're taking 3,000 out of CDs because it won't be
out of
spent.
CDs, okay. I'm
And then
sorry.
putting it into the other two. And the way the policy is written is that the staff can do that and notify the board
Yeah.
posthumously or afterwards. So, but we thought since you were voting, that money is spent and gone. We thought it would be appropriate to show you.
Yeah.
Actually, I just had one question, which was the moving the building maintenance repair. We're just anticipating more. Is this something more than what we've been talking about?
We've had a lot of repairs, so there have been a lot in like the last just month alone. I listed, we have a sump pump that went out over at the Tepper building.
During the middle of the rains?
No, that is April.
Was it?
That was at the end of, it was at the end of April.
Okay, so
That was
before
right
the
before it
rains.
went away. So we just received the bill for that today.
Okay.
There was also remember the air handler repair, the motor had to be
Mhm.
replaced. We just got the bill for that one. That was like $5,761.
Okay.
So things are breaking.
Okay.
So
Just-
there are things we have to pay for, and then there's anticipation of other things we're probably going to have to be
Okay.
paying for. So.
And thank you. That's exactly what I need to know.
All those, is there a motion to approve this item? Second?
Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. I thank you. Circulation policy amendment. Are there any questions? 9.5, if you're looking for it in the packet. I don't think I had anything that was,
This is a pretty straightforward.
What should we be looking for here?
$50 and.
so first of all, changes, and if you don't see changes.
Section 8,
Okay.
where there are changes in Section 8. 8B and 8C.
Oh, right, okay.
So we're trying to be more generous, basically.
Yeah, oh, we know.
Is there a motion to approve this policy
So moved.
change? Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, the list of scheduled monthly board meetings is just a item. We don't have to approve it, do we?
Yes, you do.
Yeah,
We do?
We do.
Oh,
It's
okay.
an open meeting act thing.
You have that in your packet, so it probably is 9 something or another, 9.2, I think. No?
9.6.
9.6, okay. Meetings listed from July through June. Is there a motion to approve?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second?
Second.
Don't fight over it. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. I thank you on that one. Okay, board professional development topics. Barbara, you have a list. Or do you?
Okay. It's in the director's report. Celeste and I.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Celeste and I met over coffee and came up with some ideas which are listed in the director's report. And we think you should look at the list and add, and make sure we have covered topics you're interested in, and if there's anything else. We didn't want to just do it between the two of us. Celeste, did you want to add anything? Because she's got some required stuff she's got to do, too.
One of the inserts in your packet is the per capita requirements for the next 3 fiscal years, 18, 19, and 20. And we have to blend those in because it's required by the state that the board and the staff follow up on particular topics, whether it's in the trustee's tax file or the state standards. So we thought by getting the areas you're interested in, for example, learning more about immigrants and how they're served in our community and seeing where those fit in with our requirements, or every year you have to evaluate tech plan changes. So we thought we'd give you a comprehensive look. But we wanted to make sure if there are other topics that you knew you were interested in, this is on the last page of the director's report at the top. If there are additional topics, please reach out to us now, and as additional topics come up, please reach out to us then as well.
Yeah, this is not cut and dried. It's
Yeah, we did a tentative calendar and kind of moved things around, but wanted to make sure we hit things you're interested in. But also, how long are you assuming this will be in minutes, or how big of, I mean, like?
I'd say 10 minutes or less. What
Oh.
but don't you kind of think? I mean, some things might.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So at the back of your director's report?
Right.
On the very back?
On the very top?
It's a sentence, it's not a whole paragraph.
Oh, I see, Barbara. Okay, sorry. Good.
I'd say a half hour, so.
I was thinking more.
So they're complicated, but you request.
Some would be, yeah.
I was thinking, like, for example, 15 minutes and then 15 Q&A or something. But I don't know how that fits with our time.
Well, it's all part of our board meeting, so it's
Yeah,
not.
right,
I don't want to make it excessively long.
right, right, I get that.
I would definitely think that there might be times it would be necessary, but other times I would hate to hold them to it.
Yeah, okay.
A half hour that isn't.
Yeah,
Well,
Could
we
be-
could plan this of the total agenda too, if there's some
yeah,
extraordinarily complicated or lengthy topics we discussed. We put this off and do it early.
Well, I've been doing a lot of reading on Makerspace, so I think it requires at least 3 hours worth of it.
We won't assign Jeff any.
He's gonna make a space.
No, seriously, I agree. I mean, not that long, but maybe what we could do is hand out some articles. For example,
Yeah.
one of the things I would want to cover is how having a makerspace here in the library will help kids with their future careers. It's not just about making tchotchkes, plastic tchotchkes. It's really about eventually making pieces for an artificial heart, and to make sure the community understands that.
Well, that's what I mean. That's serious, sort of serious, but handouts would be cool.
Yeah.
So.
Or another suggestion might be, I mean, going along with both of these ideas is, you might do it in chunks where you might introduce the subject at a meeting, give us context, and then send us away with homework to read. And so we have context to understand more what we're reading, and then we come back at a subsequent meeting, and then we can have an informed discussion. And if we have any questions, that might be another way, so that it breaks up the time, and we can help educate ourselves on our own time, but then we can have more meaningful discussion. It's a thought.
So I start, like I checked out every book I could find. So I find this one, which has our Makerspace, one of the early ones, which has me in the article. Like, go figure, you know? No, but I mean, not by name, but still it's like, oh my gosh, I asked that question and they told it to whoever was writing the story. But I mean, it doesn't take it over my life, but it's really an interesting little thing here, so.
And when I was at ALA, I worked on the ethics statement about the ethics of makerspaces. So there's a lot of interest in that on my part too, so, yeah. But I realize we don't want to go on for 3 hours.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, that's
Thank
good.
you. Did you have something?
No,
No.
no, this is good.
I didn't ask, I didn't appoint the nominating committee as chairman. So did one of you volunteer to be chairman?
I was.
Bill did? Okay.
And we met since our last meeting and came up with a slate of nominees. Chris Scher for president, Mark Netter for vice president, Beth Scheid for secretary treasurer, and Anna Merritt for secretary pro tem.
Okay. That election will be next month. And I don't see, I've talked with the mayor, and I don't anticipate changes in the board between now and then.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Doesn't say it wouldn't happen, but when I talk with her, I don't think.
Thank you for your trust.
Yes. Thank you, both of you. Intergovernmental library agreement.
This needs some backstory. So what you have just been delivered is information about our relationship with a group that's called My Media Mall. It's a consortium, a group of libraries through which we are able to subscribe to the Overdrive ebook product. We get books from the Cloud Library, which is one vendor, and we get books from Overdrive, which is another vendor. Pros and cons to each, they offer different things, all ebooks. So we've been in this group of libraries called My Media Mall for a period of years, and as they were negotiating with the person that is the liaison to Overdrive, they discovered there actually were no governing documents for this body of libraries, which is problematic when you want to vote on things if there's actually no real organization. So libraries that have been working together, when they found this out in November of 2016, there's been a governance ad hoc committee to create a governance structure for My Media Mall, and they've been working with attorneys at Ansel Link. They've met a couple of times, and what you have in front of you is their draft agreement for libraries. They're hoping that library boards could take a look at them and vote at their June meetings to be able to move ahead for people's July fiscal years to make informed decisions about collections. So tomorrow,
I'm sorry, what's the scope, how many libraries have been involved in these discussions? I mean, just ballpark.
I don't remember, there's a lot of libraries.
Okay.
And
200?
I don't remember the number. And I knew you'd ask that, and I
Just curious, so it's not a small local effort, this is,
No, it's across the state. It's Rails and IHLS. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 13 libraries that were on the ad hoc governing committee
itself, okay.
just to do that. And so there are a lot of libraries, and I can get you a number shortly.
No, I mean, that's just trying to figure out, okay.
So in working together, you can get the books from the Overdrive connection as a group, but not individually. So, long story short, I wanted to put this in front of you. There is a webinar or video conference tomorrow to see if different people have questions about it. I will log in and see if there are questions that have come up for the libraries. It looks fairly straightforward. I'll run it by Jim Simon to let you know that we've taken a look at it. I know they've acted in good faith. Everyone wants us to move ahead in concept. If there are any tweaks between now and next month, I'll let you know. But this is the document that I anticipate that we'll be asking you to vote on, so that then, as a body, we can do things like negotiate a new agreement with the Libraries First group.
You have not shown it to the attorney yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
I wanted to sit through tomorrow and see if there were any changes before I spent any Jim's time.
Makes sense. Okay. We have no report from the Friends unless Celeste has any additional.
They're not meeting again
Yeah.
until
September
later.
or August, it's summer hiatus.
Yes, until the Sweet Corn Festival.
I think I'll use my privilege to announce the wonderful news from the foundation. You've got an item of it. I don't think the paper told, it's $300,000, and it's a nice gift for
That's
something we need.
To the library.
To the library, yes. Oh, it wouldn't have gone through the foundation, though, would
Nope.
it? No, that's right. I was thinking it went through the foundation. Okay.
It's still good news.
It's still good news, absolutely. And are we contemplating, that's, I think, a good question in my mind. establishing that in this building, or it's much bigger than this building, isn't it?
So the question that we've initially, the question I asked the attorney right away when we were notified that we would be gifted something in the bequest, which was a couple of years back, was what are our obligations and at what point would we have to spend the funds? Could we spend a little bit now and some later? Because there's not a lot of space in this facility to spend $300,000, which is a large sum of money to equip a low vision room. And the attorney said that we could wait for a potential expansion and have that be part of the funding for the expansion, to really build something that was high tech, as well as put collection in there. So the $300,000 was part of the equipping. It could be books as well. Good news is that we have a reader so that people can put their physical material underneath it, and it will expand it and show lines above and below it and show it in different ways, your own physical written text or printed. Someone wants to donate a more current one. Ooh. So we're getting some more high-tech, low-vision equipment that we would maybe have spent some of this bequest on that we don't have to. And I don't want to give away the name of the donor yet because we don't have it, but we are very hopeful that this company is going to give that to us. So we're going to take a look at what our options are, but I lean towards pausing a moment and seeing what our community needs. We would want to do a survey of how many people with low vision in our community we have, as well as what they're looking to get from the public library.
Do they make things like that that speak the text, like audio converting? Maybe there's an app for it.
They do have pieces of equipment that will scan typed text, they'll OCR it, and then speak it aloud. They either save it to a file or talk it out loud. So that's a possibility. There are brailing machines. You can bring the material and have it come out in braille. They're really loud. I used to work with the Washtenaw County Library for the Blind, which I helped incorporate from the county library into the Ann Arbor District Library. So I have some experience with this, and Rachel has some experience when working with low vision people as well.
Yes, one of my colleagues was visually impaired, and so we worked to make library and work accessible together over the last 3 years.
Exciting.
So we're sort of talking about donations. So I found this article, and I'll give it to you, and perhaps everyone knows about it, but I was totally surprised. But when you're an artist, you're a painter, if you donate your paintings to a museum or a library, you only get to deduct the value of the paint and this kind of stuff. Well, according to this fellow, all we need now is somebody to protest that with the IRS, and they may change that whole thing, which would allow people who write books or whatever to donate and take a heck of a tax write-off. So why this is like all of a sudden news, I don't know, but perhaps there's something in the offing that would then, with this town, with so many people that have things that they might want to donate and get some tax credit for, it might be interesting. So I'll give that to you.
Thank you.
I think this sort of gives to be used to leverage other things too. And it will be good not to move too quickly on this. See what we can go, what comes to us too. So it's a great gift. It's unexpected too.
Sure is. Do we know of any other libraries that has such a center? Do you know of any? I guess that's what I'm asking. Any other low reading?
I don't know locally. Of course, the state library has the Braille and the National Library Service for the Blind collection in Springfield. Chicago's got some resources as well. Okay. I'm not sure about what the local resources are.
And part of the cutback at IHLS, that was the first thing they jettisoned.
Right.
Yeah. So the state library picked it up.
I do know that in Indianapolis, Indiana University, Indianapolis library used to be cutting edge on things like this.
Okay.
I do not know if that is still true, but it would be worth a field. It's not that far. It could be
Oh, it's
a field trip.
Is it not that the University of Illinois is like at the
Could be,
leading edge of this sort of thing?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
That's a good point, yeah.
So perhaps there's some synergy there that...
Yes.
That's a great point.
That's a great point. Get them in on it, and let the University of Illinois pay for part of it.
Yeah. With all their millions.
Okay, Jeff, do you have anything from Heartland?
No, I just go to endless meetings about advocacy, and I think people are starting to get frustrated. It's like, when are we going to advocate and quit talking about it and stuff? So, and the other concern that I was expressing to you before the meeting, everybody's sort of living, I think, in la-la land. You know, they've only got $600,000 so far, and the fiscal year is almost over, and they may not get anything else, and that's from 3.2 million. And so they're eating alive their reserves. So what happens next year? And so some idiot on the board brought up, well, Rails has a lot of money in the bank. Is that money that we could use? So I probably got into big trouble. But I mean, like, you know, Rails is doing fine because they've got more of a reserve. But it's like, you know, I'm on the personnel committee, and it's like, you know, we're going to have to start talking about layoffs and all that sort of stuff. So that time's getting short, and it's going to.
Yeah.
If I can share also with IHLS, delivery is paid for with the federal comes that come through the IMLS, the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So that budget is set through the end of September, but the budget's not been set, and that's one of the institutions that's been pegged for closure. So if the IMLS is closed or there's no budget for it next year, then the delivery system, which even moves our books to Champaign and back and forth, let alone across the entire state, those funds would go away. And we would have to figure out as a state, or at least as a consortium, how
But that's why
that's
advocacy is such a challenge, because it's this sort of invisible network of sharing that nobody knows about. And of course, maybe it's not important until you can't get a book. But
that's why I thought I'd.
Might you be able to, if we come up against that, have some sense of what it costs between us and Champaign? Can that be broken out? So if we say, we've got a zero budget here, can we continue somehow with Champaign Urbana? That would be a terrible loss if we can't do that exchange.
Well, one thing that IHLS is probably considering is what they would charge the libraries to continue the service that we get for free. They know, they've got the drivers.
Okay.
They just did that whole study of what it costed, what it costs. So I know that they've got data, which I'm assuming they're taking a look at.
you would
Do you have
assume.
a sort of rough guess? Just say the Urbana Champaign yearly costs.
I don't know. We'd have to get a truck or hire someone. How many bins a day do we get back and forth?
It varies by the day of the week. You know, they collect, they don't deliver over the weekend, so there's some days where it's quite light, you know, Thursday's light, but we get a ton on Mondays, so it just depends.
It might even be something like at least a half hour a day, more or less every day, of somebody driving back and forth. And maybe more like an hour. Somewhere just
Call it
You
roughly.
an
gotta
hour
talk
and a half
about
back and
loading and
forth.
unloading.
Yeah.
Right, plus loading, some loading and unloading, yeah,
And
so.
wear and tear on the vehicle and that,
Yeah.
so. It
And that's
certainly
just-
could be broken out, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's just Champaign Urbana. We have things coming in and going out that go across the state.
Yeah, that's gonna be
Every day
harder
as
to
well.
estimate, but.
But I'm just saying that I think we would want to try to save the Champaign-Urbana exchange, or our whole association with them would be lost if we didn't have that, even these other libraries. But let's not cross that till we get there.
It's just that this budget thing seems so amorphous, but it's starting to cascade. So
Yeah.
the state library has certain flexibilities to change around federal monies to put Band-Aids on things. That's going away because you can only do that for so long. So these sort of options are starting to drop out, you know, the federal defunding of certain things. So the service is under pressure from all sorts of directions.
So if this is important to you as individuals, I encourage you to reach out to your representatives. And I would be happy. This is the advocacy moment. If you are interested in more information, I'd be happy to share it. If you're interested in how to find out who your people are, at the ILA website says, you know, put in your zip code or your address, and it will tell you who your people are, and you can talk with them.
Okay, let's move on to the director's reports. Celeste?
This is one of the fun moments I have, is getting these comment cards and reading them. And this one, I walked around the building. I took a moment to walk around and show it to people, which I will share with you. The staff here is very, very helpful. No surprise. This is my first time here, and I will be back. which is so heartwarming. And another reason it's heartwarming is because I was walking around the building showing it to people, and 2 staff members thought that they helped this person, which in talking to them sounded like 2 very different people. But that's no surprise because staff here are awesome. And it's just so nice to get confirmation of that in different ways. And it's a joy to walk around and share pleasant comments with people. So that is one piece to share. And then I wanted to give you a quick summary about the New American Welcome Center meeting. There was a meeting. There were over 30 people there. We barely fit in the room. We did not fit around the table, that's for darn sure. We talked about the role of the advisory committee, which is to be a vehicle for community stakeholders to identify needs, develop strategies, and oversee implementation of plans to ensure we're a welcoming community for all. We expect to meet quarterly throughout the year as a governing body, or as a body, and then different people will work on different subcommittees, which will be assigned shortly. So it was very productive, and I'm very pleased to be at the table, and there are a lot of friendly and familiar faces around. So more updates as more is available. And Carol Inskeep is working on a new series here, ESL conversation groups through the summer that will be here in the auditorium. She's lining up last details. It's looking like Wednesday mornings, June, July, and August.
And will she break it by age group, or will it just be, no, okay.
Carol's
It'll be
got this
interesting.
under control.
Sure, yeah, just kind of curious.
And as I get more information, I will share it.
Yeah, that's always
It's a
fun.
moving target at the moment, but
Sure.
we're very excited to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
And if it's successful, we as a library are open to continuing past the summer. It depends when the conversation leaders are available and when the people coming are available as well. So we'll start with this and see how else we can grow the services.
So part of the New American Welcome Center is kind of an inventory of capacity, capacity inventory, and seeing where we're short in areas. Have you seen anything yet where the library could fit in better, where they don't have us, where we don't currently have a capacity that we might be able to fill in some of the vacant areas, or is it just too early?
I haven't seen the survey. I filled out the survey representing the library, but I haven't seen the results yet. And we're all eager to see who is doing what and filling which gaps. And they asked us to each pick a sub-area, and I picked the, I picked the education piece.
Seems like we fit in a lot of places.
We fit in a lot of places. So, yeah, the asset mapping. So health and well-being, language and education, citizenship and civic engagement, economic integration and employment, and community development. So we really, I mean, we fit in all of them, and some just more directly. We don't provide health services here. On the other hand, when places reach out and say, do you want a blood pressure screening, we say, yes, please come, which would benefit all people. So there's a group called City Project Oasis that's also doing some mapping, so we're going to be looking at the different websites, blogging about different resources to the community members, and just raising awareness of what is available in the community as well as at the library.
I'm really glad to see you, Celeste, on this committee because my husband and I are both trained now by the Immigration Project here in town. Well, it's actually also in Bloomington Normal, but it's for Central Illinois to get people get their applications as citizens done. And I do know that in our 2 training sessions, we kept bringing up libraries because there were a lot of librarians in this group, as you can imagine. And I can't tell you how many times people said, oh, I never thought of libraries as being part of this. And so you're being on there, you're going to hear that if you haven't already. They're going, oh, we never thought of that.
It's a pretty library-friendly crowd, and
Okay.
I'm the only librarian on the crowd. This is on the crowd and on the group. So I've already reached out to Champaign and Muhammad as a starting point to say, okay, what can I give you that's helpful? And then I'll start reaching out to the Champaign County Libraries, which is the service area. But I want to start with our 2 closest neighbors and see what makes sense to them.
Yeah.
And then do information back and forth between the libraries and the group, and then the group and the libraries.
Is that it?
That's it.
Kathy, we're waiting breathlessly for your,
What broke?
no, what broke.
And how expensive is it?
Well, you know, Beth, when I mentioned that number before about the air handler motor replacement, I transposed two numbers. It's actually $5,167.
Oh.
So I just wanted to correct that.
Okay.
The other thing is I had left for each of you last month, Mark had a question about the guaranteed energy savings project that the city of Urbana has started working on. And in that, there is an answer to Mark's question, whereas it says project savings must pay for the project within 20 years. And Mark, I think that responds to your question. But this would provide you with an overview. I believe this is a PowerPoint that came from Scott Tess's presentation to the city of Urbana. And it provides an overview of the project, a typical project. Talks about typical projects that you can use this for. It talks about the process that works. It talks about the statutes that have to be followed during this process. So I didn't bring it last month, but I wanted to make sure that you had that this time so that you could know a little bit more about the process. So you notice that there were a couple of mentions of projects that we've been investigating. They have to do with possibly more security cameras in the building, also security mirrors in the building. And one of the things that is not on that list that I will tell you that will be probably going up the list next is going to be painting projects. So we have a number of places in the building where painting is very much needed. So if you have any questions about that, we'll know more about those things in the future, but I just wanted to let you know that.
Just a question on the guaranteed energy savings project. So it has to, presumably, when it says pay for the project within 20 years, that means principal plus interest has to be paid off. And so I'm guessing?
I got the handout, that's what I got.
Okay, good. When there are loans for things like that, is that a little over 3% a year typically? Is the typical interest rate that we have to pay?
I think the city usually has a rate, a target rate that they use for those calculations. It may vary a little bit year to year.
But right now it's
3 to
around
4%.
Okay, so it means you need to get back about 8% or something per year to, well, not quite that much because you're paying off. Oh, okay, but somewhere in the 6-7% per year, which would be a useful sort of guideline for things like windows, et cetera, better air conditioning, whatever.
The only other thing I can tell you is that I have been calling Henneman to try and find out when the boiler project would start because it was targeted for mid-May and I had not heard from them, and then I was in a meeting today and they showed up unannounced. But I can tell you is that they wanted to get together to talk about arrangements for parking during the installation of the boiler. So I quickly emailed them. They said they were told tomorrow, so I may have more information about when that will start within the next few days.
So I hadn't thought about it, but there is a staging area for that too, isn't there?
I'll find out more about that, but I'm assuming we're going to have to find a place for them to park and unload possibly at certain times. So I'll find out more tomorrow.
The parking lot, just by the bike racks.
Yeah, that's right, that would make more
Between,
sense.
in the fence, where
Right.
all the property
And it
is.
wouldn't be there terribly long.
No.
Duration of, I mean, they need to move in the heavy equipment
Yeah.
Right.
and move stuff out.
And I think that they were even considering doing some of those things before with the library open, so it wouldn't impact parking. So that was a possibility I'd heard in the past, so I think that tomorrow might reveal something.
Well, it'll be easier for the contractors too.
Right.
I'm sure.
So we hope they can work it out.
That's great news. I know there was kind
It
of
is.
a timetable that it was better to start this now because of everything that stacks up later, so great.
But I know what it is. Pella windows arrived today, and I didn't expect them at all. And
Nice
so I know what
windows.
you're up against. They don't call you even to tell you. You're at least on it. Okay, anything else, Kathy? No. I have nothing to offer at this time, and I don't think,
Any other administrative?
You know, we might want to spend just a couple minutes looking over this exhibit stuff they brought right here before we go into closed
Well,
session.
we do have another administrative report.
oh, I'm
Oh.
sorry. Was it on an agenda and I missed it?
No, just administrative reports broadly.
I'm sorry.
We just have Kathy Celeste on there as a,
Yeah,
always.
standing item.
Well, I have a bit of happy news to share with you. The hands-on science kits are active and they are available to be checked out. These are kits that are available in the Children's Center, and each focuses on a different scientific topic that might be of interest to children in our community. We expect these to be very well received because our kits so far have been. So you can see this one is focused on insects in resin so that our scientists can practice their skills. And each one is quite different. So you can see another one is, for instance, a very large skeleton-sized puzzle that is approximately the size of a child so that they can learn about the bones that make their body. We've got several kits that are out, and so we're excited to be able to offer them.
Very nice.
These are funded by... Oh, yes, please forgive me. These are funded by the foundation through Glennis Bixby.
Oh, nice.
Is the loan period for those the same? Is it the same as everything else? Can they keep them 2 weeks at a time?
Well, especially with the renewals, they're able to keep them for extended periods of time.
I don't think they check out for 4 weeks like a book, though.
I think
It seems like you could go through that in a couple of
I
days.
think it's two.
2 weeks.
Do you have anything on water filtration?
You know, I don't believe that we do, but that's something we could look for in an expansion of the collection.
School's over in a week or two, so it's okay. I just wondered. Sorry.
Schools, particularly testing with lead, things like that, are you thinking?
Oh, gosh, we didn't even talk about lead. They're
That
just
would be
talking
a
about
thing
little
that
bugs
schools
in the
would be
water now.
sensitive to is testing for lead. Because schools, I know my wife, when she was a grade school, had a science project of testing for lead in the wells around it. So it would be a kid's project.
Yeah, I actually have some friends who just put together a kit for children's museums. They're a local couple who wanted to develop something really simple for ordinary people to measure lead in water, and let me get in touch with them because they wanted people, like people in Flint, Michigan, to be able to measure their own water and, you know, and empower people to take charge of their own water. Let me check.
Seeing nothing else at this time, can I have a motion to go into closed session
So moved.
pursuant to 5-1 LCS 12:0/2CI? Is there a second?
It's C1.
C1? Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
All those in favor say, oh, I guess we have to have a roll call.
Jane? Jeff?
Yes.
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 Bill?
Yes.